Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Tonight we have a really special 3 guests, and it's a very special session. Most of the time we have our webinars based on doctors and other healthcare professionals coming to give us advice or thoughts and share with us. But tonight we have 3 Paralympics ladies coming to share with us their journey and how they face their challenges. As it said, life is filled with bumps and things we wish we could change, but the beauty of it is finding joy despite those things. So in this webinar, you're going to hear 3 Paralympics, Brianna Hennessy, Candice Combdon, and Jessica Lewis, each of whom overcame life-altering physical and emotional challenges. So today, we're going to start off with Jessica. Jessica is a 3-time Paralympic competing for Bermuda, even though she's a Canadian, in the sport of Paralympic athletes. She is the current Para-Pan-Am Games record holder in the T53 100 meters. And at the Tokyo 2020 Paralympic Games, finished 4th in the T53 100 meter final. Jessica also holds an honors bachelor degree in recreational and leisure studies with a focus on therapeutic recreation from Brock University, Ontario. So Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with all of you tonight to just share a little bit about my journey through sport and living with a disability. So I've competed at 3 Paralympic Games in para-athletics, London in 2012, Rio 2016, and Tokyo 2021 Paralympic Games. And I'm currently in training to hopefully qualify for the Paris 2024 Paralympic Games. And just my journey of coming to be an athlete and being able to travel around the world competing has just been absolutely phenomenal in, helping to give me self-confidence and just the ability to really embrace my life and my unique challenges and my unique abilities. So I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, so let me backtrack a little bit to the beginning of my story. I was born 2 months early, only weighing 3 pounds, 8 ounces, with a disability called diastematomyelia, which is a really big word. And I'm 30 years old, and I'm still learning how to spell it. So basically, this disability means that I had a bone pierce my spine, which split my spine in half and left me paralyzed from the waist down. When I was born, I did have a little bit of movement in my legs, but that started to deteriorate when I was 2 months old. So I was flown out to Boston Children's Hospital because I was born in Bermuda, and we didn't have kind of the necessary doctors there that I needed. So I was flown to Boston Children's Hospital, where I spent 56 days laying flat on my stomach, having approximately 10 surgeries to try and remove the bone spur, and then to deal with all of the complications that came with that, for which I got kind of everything in the book. And then from then on, I got my first wheelchair when I was 19 months old. And I remember going through a time in my childhood where I absolutely hated my disability. I didn't want anybody to ask me about it, and I never wanted to talk about it. I would actually wish for the ability to walk for one day, and then at the end of that day, I could decide if I wanted to be in a wheelchair or walk, kind of at that point knowing what my answer would have been. But that all started to change when I found the world of Parasport. And so at age 5, I got involved in an organization in Bermuda called WindReach Bermuda, and they offer programs for people with disabilities. And that kind of gave me my first exposure to not only the world of parasports, but to a world of other people with disabilities that were kind of facing the same challenges that I was. just because I wasn't exposed to that in kind of any other area of my life. Going through school, I was the only person in a wheelchair. So I never really had the opportunity to learn from somebody else. And that all changed when I got involved in Windreach. So, I just wanted to say that what I'm saying tonight is all kind of my experience. I don't want to speak for everybody with a disability just because we are so varied in our experiences. So these are just kind of the things that have helped me in my journey. So I got involved in a lot of different sports there at Windreach. I got involved in horseback riding, wheelchair basketball, wheelchair tennis, rock climbing, and it just really gave me an opportunity to see that having a disability wasn't a bad thing. And it also gave me the chance to see that, I have 1,001 things that make up who I am as a person, and my disability is just one factor of that, or one piece of that. So Windreach held a sports expo in 2006, and they brought down athletes and coaches from Canada and the States in a variety of different parasports. And the whole idea of that was to just showcase what was available. At that point, my first coach, Ken Tom, in para-athletics came down with his son, Curtis Tom, who raced for Canada, and they showed track racing. And I remember getting in a chair that was way too big for me. And I just absolutely fell in love with this sport, and I just wanted to learn everything that I could about it. And at that point, Bermuda, and still at this point, Bermuda doesn't have a wheelchair track coach. So Ken kindly offered to coach me. So I ended up moving to Canada in 2011 to go to university, as well as to train with Ken and his athletes full time. Unfortunately, we did lose Ken in 2017. He died suddenly. And then at that point, Curtis Tom, his son, was retiring out of the sport, and he very graciously stepped in and offered to coach me, which was absolutely phenomenal. I could never thank him enough for all that he did to keep me in the sport at that point. And my journey's kind of changed a little bit now from that point as well. And I've just transitioned to starting to work with a new coach, Jeff Harris, this past June. And I'll be moving to Victoria, BC, actually tomorrow, to train with him full time out of the Athletics Canada West Hub as an international athlete. So I'm very, very excited about that. But kind of going through this whole journey, when I look back at growing up with my disability and just kind of learning more about it and more about the abilities that I did have, I probably would never have thought that I would be an athlete at the Paralympic Games. But that all changed because I had the incredible opportunity to be a spectator at the Beijing 2008 Paralympic Games, where I was able to go and see kind of the level of ability you had to be at to compete at this high of a level. And it was just absolutely phenomenal. And I remember sitting in the stands with the other 90,000 spectators watching wheelchair track racing. And I turned to my mom, who came with me, and I said, at the next Paralympic Games, I'm going to be down on that track racing. And that's exactly what happened. I put, my heart and soul into this sport every single day, and I'm just so grateful for it because it's given me my life, and it's given me the chance to embrace my incredible, unique journey, and to have an outlet to help me get over, some of the challenges that I face. And it's given me the chance to meet other people that are going through similar challenges that, really help to validate who I am and the feelings maybe that I have kind of going through that. And with that, I think the biggest thing that's helped me in my life is finding an incredible support network around me. I've been very fortunate to be born into an amazing family who have always, pushed me to go after my dreams and to set big dreams and to have that belief that I can achieve them. And, they never held me back, even though I had my disability and my limitations. So it's kind of about realizing that, yes, we all have limitations and we all deal with something in our lives. Sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's something else, sometimes it's visible, sometimes it's not, but it's finding a way or an outlet that we can kind of push past those and really embrace everything that we can be and believe that we can be. And even with limitations, we can achieve anything that we set our minds to. And with that said, I don't want to say that there won't be tough days, because I still get really tough days as well, going through with my disability. And you're allowed to feel mad, you're allowed to feel upset, or whatever emotion you do have in those moments. But to that, I just say that just remember to be kind to yourself, and then find a way to get out of that mindset and find a way to get into a more positive mindset. And one of the big things that's helped me, that my grandmother taught me when I was born, and it's kind of been our family motto now, is that you have to face something and deal with it, or it will consume you. And that's something that I live by every single day. And, I allow myself to have those moments where I get frustrated, and then I have time to reflect on it and move forward and find something that can help me get through that. Because I truly believe that every single one of us has an incredible purpose and an incredible life story to tell. And that's something that we can continue to write every single day. And when we embrace every single aspect of ourselves, we learn to find joy in even the smallest of things. Like I said, I have 101 things that make up who I am, and my disability is just one of them. Just like the challenges that we face are only a part of who we are. So thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Jessica. That was an inspiring story. Our next presenter is Candice Combdon. She is a para athlete living with spina bifida. When she had her right leg amputated due to reoccurring infections resulting from spina bifida, she found her place in Parasport. She competes for Team Ontario and Team Canada as a wheelchair tennis athlete. So Candice.
Thank you so much. Again, I really appreciate being here as well and having the opportunity to share my story with everybody. As you said, I was born with spina bifida. And then I guess my first experience with sport in general was actually when I was 7 years old. So I wore leg braces to help me walk. I used a wheelchair every once in a while growing up, but I was basically able to walk, not really able to run. And I played one season of t-ball when I was 7 years old. And I remember just being completely turned off of the world of sport, because my very first time going out for a practice with my team, one of the kids pointed at me and said, "Haha, you can't run." And that, for me, I thought, sports are just not going to be a part of my life. They're not going to be a thing that I can do, because this kid is right. I can't run. I can't be like the other kids. So I think that I sort of turned away from the world of parasport and sport in general at a very young age. So for me, I actually didn't find the world of parasport up until in my early 20s, actually. So I grew up with no sport. I didn't even know that parasport was a thing. I didn't know that it was an option for me. I just sort of shied away from the whole experience of it. So very early on, or very late in life, in my 20s, like I said, I found wheelchair tennis. Growing up, I watched tennis with my mom. We, every weekend when there was a tournament on, we'd sit around the TV and watch, and I just loved the sport. I loved everything about it. So when I realized that I could play it, I thought, well, this is a chance that I have to take, this is something that I have to try, because I love the sport so much, and I didn't know that this was something that I could do. So I actually went for a try-it session in Toronto. I grew up in Newmarket, so a lot of people are probably not familiar with that, but it's about an hour outside of Toronto. Ontario. So there was not really anything for me in Newmarket when I was growing up. So finding wheelchair tennis in Toronto, I went in my 20s and instantly fell in love. I had never felt so accepted and so welcomed into a community of people that were just like me. Even in school growing up, I didn't have, I get like similar to Jess, I was, one of the only people in my class that had a physical disability. I didn't have a lot of friends who were disabled, anything like that. So I didn't have a lot of experience with people who were like me. So when I found the community of wheelchair tennis, I just instantly fell in love and was like, this is something that I need to do. I need to either volunteer or become an athlete or a coach or something. So long story short, again, there was nothing in my area really. So I kind of fell away from it. I tried it, fell in love, and then probably didn't pick it up again for another couple of years, just because there was nothing in my area. About, I guess, probably 2 or 3 years later, I tried it again. And because they were holding another try it session, absolutely fell in love again and was like, okay, this is obviously something that I need to pursue. So I started playing just at like the local league outside of Toronto. It was every Monday night I would go and we would just, run through drills and they would teach you how to hold the racket and how to move the wheelchair and things like that. It got to a point where I wanted a little bit more, I wasn't feeling challenged. I wanted to kind of move forward. So then came Team Ontario. They basically said, we don't have enough people for a development session or a development team at this point. So your option is to join Team Ontario or to wait. I threw myself in for the challenge, and that's not something that I am familiar with doing. I don't normally do that. So, this was a big chance for me and a big change and something that I wanted to challenge myself with. And so I joined Team Ontario and I got my butt kicked quite a bit, but it was an amazing learning experience and I wouldn't have it any other way because it's made me into the person that I am today. And some of my, best friends now are a part of the wheelchair tennis community. They are the people that sort of grew me up in the sport and who taught me, the ins and outs of the sport and how to, accept loss and accept winning and things like that. So I played with Team Ontario for a couple of years. And then at the age of 30, as you mentioned as well, I made the very difficult decision to have my right leg amputated above the knee. From grade 5 on, I had dealt with a lot of knee issues. I ended up wearing away all the cartilage in my right knee because of the way that I had walked because of my spina bifida. So at the age of 30, it was 17 years of surgery after surgery, infection after infection, because of all the hardware that I had in there. I just said, I've had enough. I can't do this anymore. I'm in so much pain. I'm in such a bad place in my life. I'm miserable. The only time that I was ever happy was playing tennis. So I went to a surgeon and I said, this is something that I want. This is something that's going to skyrocket my quality of life. The first surgeon told me no. He said, it's an elective surgery. We don't do those. And, you don't need it. So, it's unfortunate that you have all these infections and you're having to deal with these, but it's not something that that we're going to do right now. He said, I can refer you to a colleague. So I said, okay, yeah, I want to talk to somebody else. The second surgeon, out of Barrie, where I live now, he took one look at my x-ray of my knee and said, that's not a knee anymore. Like, that's not, everything in there had a time and a place at one point. It was doing something for you, helping you. Now it's not. If we remove this part of your body, your quality of life will absolutely skyrocket. So at 30 years old, I had my surgery. It's been 5, almost 6 years now. Since I've had that done, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't or that I do regret the decision. I don't regret it. It is the best decision I've ever made. It's made me a better person, a better athlete, a happier person, a better daughter, a better sister. And it was a tough thing to go through, and it was a tough decision to be made, but ultimately I knew that it was the right one. And I just, life just instantly got better, which was amazing. And then, so back to my tennis journey, I still continued. I took a little bit of time off, obviously, after my surgery. And then I got right back onto the court as soon as I think it was a week after my surgery. I was actually out of practice, not practicing, but I was there to support the people that were, because I couldn't stay away. I was like, I need to get back on the court, even though I can't play. So I was back doing it like almost instantly because I loved it so much. And it's just been such a life-changing experience for me. And, being able to grow through the sport and to grow as a person and to grow as an athlete, has been just an eye-opening experience for me. Like, I'm a different person completely than I was when I was growing up. And I think anybody in my life would tell you that, who knew me back in the day, that I've just become such a more confident, happy person. So I guess it was November of last year, I was actually given the opportunity to join Team Canada. The national coach had been watching and seeing, how I was developing on the courts, and he said, I think we could use your support with Team Canada. We were actually going to the World Team Cup qualifiers in Mexico. So I actually went in February with Team Canada, and we competed and came in second. Unfortunately, we needed to come in first to qualify for World Team Cup, but I know we were so close. But, I'm super excited, and it was an amazing experience for me to go there with my teammates, and share that experience with them. And again, to see so many different athletes from all over the world who are like me and who are in the similar situations that I was in. So, like just said, finding that community and that support system is so important, no matter what you're going through in life. Whether it's physical, whether it's, mental, anything like that. It is absolutely important to have a strong support system. And like just said as well, I grew up with a very supportive family who was like, whatever you want to do, we'll figure it out. Like, you got to do, like, you put in the work and you do it, but you can do anything. So for me, that was just so important to have that support system, and then to find my second support system and my second family when it came to Parasport. So it's just been like a life-changing opportunity for me, and I'm so excited to have had this opportunity, and I'm excited to see where I can take it. It's unfortunate that I didn't find it early enough in life, but I'm doing what I can with what I have now and working really hard, and it's been amazing, and I'm super excited that I get opportunities like this to share my story with everybody and to hopefully provide some inspiration and some encouragement to people who are unsure of, what their thing is, to inspire them to move forward and to continue and to do what they love to do, regardless of what their situation is.
Thank you very much, Candice. That was great. And now our next presenter is Brianna Hennessy, who's an accomplished athlete and Paralympian in paracanoe and kayak for Team Canada. She also represented Canada at the 2023 Wheelchair Rugby Women's Cup. Prior to her injury, she completed in able-bodied rugby, ice hockey, ball hockey, and was a provincial champion in boxing. Goodness, Brianna, what an athlete.
Thank you so much. So thank you for having me. I really always appreciate any opportunity to be able to tell my story, and hopefully to motivate others along the way to maybe find a passion of their own too. But so a bit about me. So as you said, I'm a Tokyo Paralympian in both paracanoe and parakayak for Team Canada. So my events are a 200-meter sprint that lasts around 1 minute. So I'm currently on my journey to the 2024 Paris Paralympics. And as you mentioned, I also play wheelchair rugby at the international level, mostly with men, but that's my cross training sport in my off season. For me, I truly believe that no matter the obstacles that we all face in our lives, with the right perspective, there's always so many wonderful things to be grateful for, to look forward to, and to still discover about ourselves. Sometimes these detriments to our health force us to slow down in a world that's moving so fast, to finally stop and appreciate some of those smaller things of beauty, maybe even some things that we've taken for granted our entire lives. I think we all search for a purpose in our lives, just like Candice and Jess were saying, a true passion that fills our heart to the top. And that honestly, in my experience too, is what sort of builds and brings families and communities closer together. Investing in any passion and then finding maybe a group near you, whether it's virtually or in person, to enjoy and learn together is the most rewarding part of all of it, I guess. Just some examples I was trying to come up with, I guess, that I have used through my recovery, from video games online to a book club, car club, meditation, breathing work. I've done lots of board game nights. Maybe you have your favorite TV shows or movies. Maybe it's cooking, volunteering, finding a new love for baking. But for me, during my recovery, I guess my major 4 positive outlets that I've leaned on are my love for music and dancing, can be a great distraction from my chronic pain. My love for drawing and doing acrylic canvas painting is an excellent mindfulness activity. I'm definitely a crazy animal lover for anyone that knows me. So having my cats and dogs, has them as my emotional support animals, and giving me unconditional love through all those countless days and hours that I spend in bed, where I feel super lonely. They've been a godsend to me. And of course, above all, through my life, has been the power of sport. With social media these days, it has never been more accessible to reach out and connect with a new group of people with shared interest. Sharing common passions is not only what unifies people of all sorts of shapes, sizes, and ages and abilities, but for a moment gives us that sense of normalcy in a world that is everything but normal anymore, and a place where we can feel ourselves and accepted. Like I guess with Jess, Candice, and I, through our growing up, or our challenges in our lives. Building a support network outside of our families is what plays a key role in my life since my accident. It's helped motivate me to build up the courage to fight back for some of my independence and confidence in my life again, despite everything that I had lost. I spent so much of my life feeling super sorry for myself, because all I did was sort of sit around comparing my old self to my new reality, or worse, comparing myself to all the able bodies around me. Even though I am blessed with an amazing family that has always surrounded me with love, I've never felt understood by something that they had never gone through firsthand. So most of all, it gives a sense of belonging and builds back up our self-worth, to receive positive feedback from the people that we can actually relate to, which I found was the most special part about Parasport. I have terrible chronic nerve pain, for example, just to list one of my invisible health problems that people can't see. And it reminded me of a story from a couple of years ago. I fell out of my wheelchair, transferring in the bathroom, and I cracked a rib. And that weekend was my extended family Christmas get together. I remember my family seeing the huge bruises all over my body and freaking out and asking if I was okay. And I remember chuckling under my breath, thinking, this is only 1% of the pain that I feel around my skull or my face or my body every second of the day. This is peanuts compared to the visible bruises, right? And that's when it hit me that only my friends that I had made, that also had a spinal cord injury, had faced some of that same debilitating nerve pain. But because of this Parasport community and my family that I am now a part of, I not only have people to lean on to go through some of these same things, but I feel understood and accepted. It was a new perspective that I really came to appreciate, rather than wasting my efforts with beating my head against the wall, trying to get my family to validate something that they will never truly grasp. Each time me complaining about my health, feeling like they were getting more and more desensitized by my permanent health challenges. There is a mental and physical side to our health, and we often forget the mental side or strength. Our bodies will give up on us if our mind, isn't strong. I'll never forget when I was growing up, my granny got cancer and leukemia, and the doctor told her she had 2 months to live. And 2 years later, she was still mentally fighting for just one more day in this world. She had 7 kids, including my mom. And one night she brought them all in the hospital room to say goodbye. That same night she passed away when she was at peace, when she was ready. And that truly resonated with me. With the mind over matter can dictate our future. We must find joy in our lives, but not everyone will wake up today like we all did. So a bit about my actual story when it coming to Parasport. So I did grow up playing AA ice hockey. I was a competitive boxer. I played for Team Canada for rugby. So I've always been an elite athlete, I guess. It's always been a big purpose in my life. Almost 8 years ago was my life-changing accident when I was in Toronto for work, and I was struck by a speeding cab driver as a pedestrian crossing the street. My parents like to believe that the only reason why I'm still here today is because of my contact sports and quick reflexes. This allowed me to throw myself on the hood of the car and brace myself instead of simply sticking my arms out and being run over and dragged underneath the car. My skull smashed into the windshield and cracked the windshield, and my body went flying in the opposite direction over 20 some feet, hitting the pavement unconscious. I woke up in the hospital paralyzed from my neck down. I felt trapped in my own body. I was in a full state of panic and completely terrified. The emergency doctor came in and told me that I had broken my neck in multiple places, my C1 and C2. I remember the only thing that I could feel was the tears rolling down my face. This has to be a nightmare, I remember thinking to myself. And if that wasn't bad enough, I found out later, as the doctor didn't catch it at first, that I had also severed one of the main arteries to my brain. This meant that I could have a stroke at any second and that any moment could be my last. Among many other ongoing health issues that I won't bore you with, I also suffer to this day every second from terrible, debilitating chronic nerve pain. And I remember turning to my dad and telling him that I wanted to pull the plug in the hospital, and him quickly replying, "No, don't you dare give up on me. Hennessy's are fighters, and we're going to get through this together." I remember I had my nurse write a saying on the hospital wall that you only know how strong you are when it's your only choice. And I had a choice to make that day. I had to decide if I was going to stop feeling sorry for myself and if I was worth it. This was my life, and it was worth fighting for. That not all was lost, no matter how hard that was, to be honest, in that very moment. If I could go back and give myself advice now, it would be to remember that things always seem the hardest right before they start to get easier. Perspective is everything when you are facing the greatest challenges in your life. This reminds me of a story one of my para-athlete friends in the USA told me. A war veteran that had both of his legs blown off by a grenade in Afghanistan. So he is now a double leg amputee. He had an able-bodied friend that used to train with him at the gym. One day, his buddy called him up saying that he had torn his Achilles tendon, so he needed to take quite some time off from training. From his friend's point of view, he was devastated. He could hardly walk, and all he could hyper-focus on was that it would set him back in everything that he had worked so hard for. My friend paused. I could only imagine the grin on his face as he replied, "Buddy, I don't even have Achilles tendons, but I have the entire rest of my body that I can work out. Why is it when an able body has an injury to just one part of their body, it puts them entirely out of commission?" I found this quote that reads, "When the winds of change blow, some people build walls and others build windmills. It's all about changing your perspective." Sometimes we can all get caught up in what we don't have or what we've lost, that we overlook and take for granted what we do have. You see, it didn't matter the catastrophic changes to my body, because no disability can break or take away your human spirit. I realized I had the same heart, the same fight of the Irish blood running thick through my veins, and the same cheesy, silly sense of humor. Most of all, even though in those dark moments when my able-bodied sports have been torn away from me, I realized that their values still resonated deep down in my core. Sport can be an incredible teacher of so many strong character traits, all of which can be applied to all aspects of life. Sport can teach us teamwork, self-confidence, drive, dedication, hard work ethic, and most of all, in my case, tenacity and resilience when things get really tough. A newfound twinkle in my eye, I remembered hearing about the Parasport called wheelchair rugby. The Ottawa Stingers club team actually practiced in the gym at the Ottawa Rehab Hospital where I was doing my rehab after my accident. So one day I went down to watch the gym. I was so inspired by these para-athletes with all sorts of disabilities, tearing it up in the gym in these crazy battle chairs, hitting each other at full speed, all with these huge smiles on their faces. I couldn't believe it. How could someone facing so many challenges every single day of their lives have no fear in the world to put themselves out there like this? I was absolutely blown away, completely astonished. And those moments for me, these incredible para-athletes were literally defining the quote, always look to find strength in your struggles. The team welcomed me with open arms. And from the first time I sat in a rugby chair, I was immediately hooked. Little did the Ottawa Stingers know they would be stuck with me and my loud cackle for the rest of my sporting career. But this was a newly discovered path that I had no idea existed. Opening this door could help me to start building some self-confidence back after my accident. From the club level, I worked hard to go on to play at the provincial level. Wheelchair rugby is a male-dominant sport where only 4% of women play in the, around the world. There's no women's league. Before COVID hit, I was the only female in Canada to be imported on a US team. And there's 44 teams in the States. When COVID hit, unfortunately, all team sports were canceled. So in April 2020, it was going to be the first time where I was going to play nationals in 2 countries in the US and Canada, and that was taken away from lots of us. Until one day out of the blue, I received an email asking me if I wanted to try parakayaking. Now, to be clear, I'd never done a water sport in my life, but more importantly, I didn't even know if I could swim after my accidents. This made me really scared. But I said, okay, let's give it a try. I need to keep up with my active recovery and ongoing therapy. This is where I met my second coach, para coach Joel. We tell this story quite often, and to me, it never loses its charm. I remember going out my first time with him on the river in what he called a wide, stable bathtub kayak boat. He's very transparent and tells it like it is, and this is why we get along so well. Anyhow, I remember him saying, I'll tell you the truth, if I think there's any potential. I replied back, that's fair to me. I don't want to waste anyone's time. Anyhow, we went out and I asked him honestly, and he said, well, what are your dreams? And I said, I want to go to the Paralympics. And I distinctly remember his reaction and his face in the moment. He tried to camouflage his chuckle, trying to escape under his breath. Just how ridiculous it would be to try and make Tokyo in such a short amount of time. And I said, if not, then Paris would be my dream as well. And he just responded to me that he doesn't do miracles. Well, what I can say is that we got to work, we trained as much as we could, or that my health would allow. I fell out of the boat many times, and I'm still falling out of the boat to this day, with Joel rescuing me and me testing his patience. I seem to have, as I always say, mastered the drowned wet swamp rat look. Try falling every time. But anyhow, at World Cup, we were able to qualify in both paracanoe and kayak. We couldn't believe it. I had actually qualified a spot at the Tokyo Games, where we got a 5th place in canoe and an 8th place in kayak. But when I'm interviewed, I'm often asked the question, do you love paddling? Honestly, I'm a contact sport team athlete at heart. Wheelchair rugby is what I'm really wired for. So they asked me, well, then what keeps you going hard on the water? For me, in sports, we all know that the athlete is only the face of the production. It is important to recognize and celebrate the entire village it takes to propel an athlete to the world stage of international competition. In my case, a very special paddle family, supportive friends and family, all making sacrifices to make my dream come true. So through our common passion for sport, there can be a true sense of camaraderie within a team, and a recipe made up of 3 ingredients that can forge powerful human bonds made out of steel. And I think this still applies with joining any passion or investing in any passion in your life. It gave me a dump truck filled with love for helping others in pursuit of the excellence of sport, adding a healthy dash of hope in moments of despair, and lastly, a full boatload of newfound friendships that will last a lifetime. This year, I also participated in the first ever all-women's Canadian wheelchair rugby team in the history of sport, dating back to 1976, and we won a bronze medal at the World Cup in Paris. Of course, it would be a dream come true to win a medal in Paris for our country, but it's these connections that we make along our journey through sport or a shared passion that we will cherish forever and are the most impactful. Since Tokyo, our team has gone on to win 9 world stage medals. Last year at World Cup and World Champs, we double medaled, earning 4 medals for Canada, from 5th in canoe and second in the world, and 8th in kayak to 3rd in the world. This year, our team attained 5 more medals on the world stage between 2 World Cups and repeating our World Championship performance of a silver and bronze. We just returned from Europe from our competition in Germany and Paris at the actual venue that the games will be next year, with lots of work to do and so much more to learn. This was a Paris qualifier for us. So I can proudly say that I'm the only Canadian in the history of sport to medal on the world stage in both canoe and kayak. Sport unifies us in the most unexpected ways and during the most unprecedented times. I believe any passion that you commit yourself to can have the same magical benefits. This brings me to my last thought. If I can leave you with a quote that truly encapsulates my survival story: life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, no matter how treacherous it may seem. It's about learning how to dance in the rain. I hope my story has inspired you to either start something new, discover a new gift that you didn't know you had, or even take back up something that you've dabbled with before. Remember to keep painting a picture of what life is still offering to you while you are trying to overcome any adversity in your life, because there's always still so many more amazing things to look forward to and be hopeful for.
Well, thank you, Brianna. You 3 ladies truly are inspiring. So, one of the things that one of our audience person wants to ask, pulmonary fibrosis is scarring of our lung tissues. And that means, every breath is always a work. It's always very difficult. So they wanted to know, other than the sports, what do you have or hobbies that help you through tough days? Did anybody want to go first with that? Jessica?
Sure. I am probably a very, very avid reader. I love to read any types of books. So I think that definitely helps me as well. And I think it kind of takes you out of kind of the situation that maybe you're in at that moment, and it gives you something else to focus on, so that when you come back to kind of deal with that challenge or anything like that, you have kind of a little bit more of a fresher brain. And yeah, that's definitely something that I love to do.
Thank you. Brianna?
I'm a crazy animal lover, so I spend a lot of time with my animals. I probably have 50,000 pictures of them on my phone. But I find that they have given me so much comfort. So many days when your family gets burnt out, let's say, with taking care of you, and you have some of those moments alone, I've really, found comfort with my animals. And I also do lots of painting, acrylic painting, canvas painting, whenever I get the chance.
Thank you. And Candice, what about you?
Yeah, so similar to Brianna, I'm a huge animal lover as well. Up until recently, I did have a cat that was like my entire life. Anybody who follows me on social media would be able to attest to that as well. Like, I just had 1,000 billion photos of him all of the time. He was like my child. So, obviously there's a huge aspect to having an animal in your life, especially when you're dealing with tough situations, just because they do have this innate ability to just make you feel better and to make you happy, even on your toughest days. So I'm a huge animal fan. The other things that I would say are probably music for sure. Like if I can put some music on super loud or in my headphones or whatever, it usually does the job to get me out of a funk. And I also really love doing jigsaw puzzles, which is very random, but I've done probably like, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 this year so far. I just, again, it gets you out of your head and gets you to focus on something else, even if it's just for a short period of time.
Thank you. Oh, if the three of you can describe, how do you pivot when you're going down that dark tunnel? How do you pivot and bring yourself back and find that joy? Should we go with you, Jessica, first?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things for me is that I allow myself to have that moment, to get those emotions out so that they're not kind of bottled up. And then I go and, I find a friend to talk to. I find my coach to talk to. I find my mom to talk to. Just somebody that I can possibly maybe just vent to, even if they don't have, the advice or the right things that they want to say to you. But it just gives you that opportunity just to let that all out. And then you can move forward, not holding on to that. That's how, yeah, definitely talking to somebody.
Thank you. Brianna.
I think, and to add to what Jess said, I think the first, 3 or 4 years after my accident, I really just fought every single day for it to be a good day. And when you realize it wasn't realistic, there's another sort of part where you kind of crash and burn with that. But I think that the biggest thing that I've learned is that it's okay to have bad days. It's okay to start the new day the next day, and to try it again. And I think that when you have so many things with our health that are out of our control, and that's, the scary part, then it's true what Jess said. It's finding whether it's someone to lean on. For me, I had terrible vertigo because I had one of my main arteries severed to my brain. So I couldn't even watch TV for many years after my accident. So I used to put on stand-up comedy and close my eyes because I could still have something that was making me laugh, that would change my mindset. And it was something positive and silly. And, like Candice said, even if it's just a distraction for an hour, it still allows your tank to be refilled a little bit and put some juice back in. So I think that those are all really great points.
Okay. Candice?
Yeah, so again, I'm going to echo what the ladies said. Allowing yourself to have those days and those moments, whether they are full days of feeling that way or just, an hour or two, just honoring that feeling and allowing yourself to have that and to be in that for a minute, but then also making the conscious decision to just not stay there, right? Because it's okay to feel these feelings, but it's not okay to let it debilitate you. As Brianna said, there's not a lot of things when you have a physical disability or any kind of disability at all that you can control a lot of the time, like we all deal with pain, we all deal with lots of different things that are out of our control. So being able to control your mindset and your emotions when those things happen, and making a conscious choice to be positive. I know it might sound ridiculous if you're like, it's going to be a great day today, but honestly, like for me, like if I wake up having a bad day, I will be like, okay, it's going to be a great day today, Candice, like you got this, let's go. And it sounds ridiculous, like to say it out loud, but for me, it makes a difference to make that conscious choice and to sort of reframe your mindset.
Okay. So Candice, I'm going to ask you, how do you help others see your abilities rather than your disability?
Oh, that's a great question. For me, I struggled with that for a lot of my life. I let my disability define me until I got a little bit older and I started getting into the workforce and meeting people and telling my story. And I realized that there was so much more to me than my disability, right? Like I am just somebody with a disability. I am not my disability. So I think for me, it was just allowing myself to be in these situations where I was able to showcase the things that I was able to do despite being in a wheelchair or despite having one leg or despite being born with spina bifida, and just having the confidence to to show that, like, okay, these are my talents, these are things that I can do. And then, I think everybody's always going to notice the wheelchair. Everybody's going to always notice that I have a physical disability, that I am different. But I've learned to use that as a strength instead of seeing it as a weakness. Like, yes, I am different, but it's a strength. It's not something that makes me less than somebody else.
Okay. Jessica?
Again, that's a really great question. And I think for me, using sport has just been an absolute amazing avenue for me to be able to showcase, that even though I'm in a wheelchair, I still have so many amazing things that I could be involved in and that I could accomplish. And I think just learning to be an advocate for myself. So, if I had any interactions with somebody who, says, oh, no, you can't do that. I have, the confidence in myself to say, no, wait a second, I can do it. It may look a little bit different than the way that you do it, but I can still accomplish it. So definitely just learning to be that advocate for myself.
Yeah, thank you. Brianna?
Yeah, I mean, the three of us have really used, Parasport to build our confidence back up. And I always, whenever I talk about Parasport, I always say that, everyone there, when I'm on the world stage, for example, they have a million reasons to give up, and they've all chosen one to carry on. And you don't need 100. You just need one thing each day. You need one, whether it's one goal that you're trying to achieve. It doesn't have to be a huge dream. It can be one thing at a time, one step at a time. And I think that's kind of what I learned is having a place of finding that space where you can celebrate your abilities, not your disabilities, kind of thing. And that really comes back to what I was saying about changing your perspective of really focusing on what does still make you happy. What are the things around you that give you joy, and refill that tank? It kind of all circles back when you're trying to stay centered with that, or reset yourself, right? Because you realize that if you do spend your whole life, worrying about what people think of you, that's a lost cause too. And just reminding yourself that no matter what our health issues are, we're still the same person, the still same human spirit. We still have our same quirks about us. It doesn't matter how we've changed or in that sense. And I think that's kind of how we continue to find value in ourselves again, and keep that there growing.
Okay, thank you. We just have a couple of minutes. So in wrapping up, I want to ask each of you, because someone in our audience wants to know, who are you most grateful as part of your community of support, who've really gotten you through some tough times? And I'm going to start with you, Brianna.
Oh my gosh. Well, I honestly, I am a stubborn Irish at heart. So when I first had my accident, I didn't want to have anything to do with accessibility equipment. I didn't want it near me. I didn't want to be in a wheelchair, and I really rebelled against it. And I feel like, that's kind of what even delayed me mentally from my recovery in those first couple of years. Was not sort of accepting some of those things. And the quicker that we can accept our new reality, I guess you can say, the quicker that I started to sort of have opportunities like the wheelchair rugby, and started to connect with a community again, of people that were all just showing me the way of how to see it as something positive, as something to build off of, that I'm not alone. I'm not the only one going through this. And I think that's kind of what you can, get stuck in. And for me, that community within the sporting community, it seems to with the parasport community, because I came from, growing up as an elite athlete, and I've done many different sports, and I've never met such incredible, wonderful people. I will go to a gym, in the States when I'm playing for my Tampa team, and there's 150 people there that I'm surrounded by that should all be dead. Every single one of them has gone through something insanely traumatic, and all different stories. And we've all come together in that one place, like I said, just with that little bit of hope and that little bit of, twinkle in our eye that there's still something that we can live for. And it's sometimes I just stop it in that moment, and it's like incredible that there's so many of these people. And that's why I always say, we all got to wake up today. you know, maybe some of us won't wake up tomorrow, but today we're here. Today we're all breathing that same air and we're sharing that. And there are so many things to love around us, you know? So for me, I mean, that's my paddle family and my wheelchair rugby family. They saved my life. I always say I wouldn't be here without Parasport. So it's, you gotta find something to fill your heart up with love again.
Thank you, Brianna. Candice?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously for me, growing up in a super supportive family, growing up with a physical disability, my family has always been my number one support system. They've always raised me to be somebody who, you know, can try new things, and no matter what it was, if I wanted to do it, I could do it. I'm, again, like Jess said, you know, you may look different doing it. It may not be the way everybody else does it, but you can still do it. So I think for me, it's my family for sure, first and foremost. And then again, also the Parasport community, you know, like meeting those people that are in similar situations, even though some of them aren't born with their disabilities, they're acquired disabilities. They're getting worse as they get older. They're getting, you know, things like that, and meeting those people and realizing that everybody is going through struggles of different kinds. And everybody is surviving, and everybody is doing what they can to, like Brianna said, live today, you know. I think that's a very important part of just having that support community to kind of keep you in check and say, listen, this is what's important today. Let's not focus on what tomorrow has, because for some people tomorrow might not come, you know, but let's focus on today. And I think for sure, so my family, who's always been there, and the Parasport community as well.
Thank you. Jessica?
It's so hard to just pick one. I've been sitting here like, oh my goodness. But it's definitely, my family has just been absolutely phenomenal. And again, my Parasport family that I've grown, that's actually grown really big recently, has just always been so supportive. And I think I really need to mention Ken Tom, who was my first coach, that unfortunately passed away in 2017. And, you know, he just opened up my entire world to, you know, that I could accomplish big things and work hard at it. You know, he saw this probably at that point, a 50-pound little girl in Bermuda. And, you know, he had belief in me that I could compete at a world stage level. And that's just been absolutely phenomenal.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate the three of you and sharing your inspirational stories. And as you know, this month, as we celebrate and sort of raise awareness about pulmonary fibrosis, you know, it's the Canadian Pulmonary Fibrosis, our month theme is Embrace Hope. And I think each of you, you know, really showcase that you embrace hope, that no matter what happens, no matter, you know, the bumps along life's journey, that you can get over it and come through. And I want to thank each and every one of you for sharing your story tonight and giving us hope.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.